swiftly rapid river. Through the pale door a hideous throng rush out forever and laugh, but smile no more.
Hi everyone, Mike Nelson here on the Satellite of Love with my buddy Crow. You're just in time to see Tom Servo's Planetarium show. What, Mark?
Welcome, space travelers, to the Tom Star Show.
And travelers now within that valley, through the red-litten windows, see vast forms that move fantastically to a discordant melody.
Your name, Till. That isn't your name. That's Light. L-I-G-H-T. Spelled backwards.
Mailbog! It's Goblin spelled backwards!
The duh heard around the world.
Have you seen the future?
Okay, what kind of a thought process is that? How does that make any sense?
They say, huh? What are you talking about? And you get a reaction from people who say, huh?
Is there a deleted scene where she gets hit in the head by a rock?
That is the entire complete point. It doesn't make any common sense. Our common sense breaks down on a subatomic level.
His name is Light, spelled backwards. Therefore, it's only logical that he's probably seen the future.
Past, present, future, all are one. The old ones walk serene and primal, undimensioned and unseen.
I thought there were infinite timelines. We're not on any timeline, dummy. Look. Oh my God!
Are those cats?
I assume they're Schrodinger's cats. Or actually, I assume they both are and aren't.
And that's Schrodinger's paradox, right? Is the cat dead? Or is the cat not dead?
Time is fluid. The waters of forever close, and passage may not be completed. The present and the future are for a moment united. Ages ago, in a long-lost part of the world, the Mayans worshipped a terrifying goddess. To her, men offered their strength and their devotion. Women offered the beauty of their bodies.
Not again.
The story is an endless cycle, a Mobius strip, that is always different because the audience is always rethinking it in light of what just happened.
And we assume time has narrowed because it is as a clock. 1 second is 1 second for everyone. Cause precedes effect.
It's mathematics.
Now, excuse me. Mathematics is the art of the possible.
I don't think so. The art of the possible. That's... I can't remember. Something else.
Time is in our minds.
Like, the fundamental axiom that I'm playing with is something that was basically expressed by Nietzsche, and it's a definition of truth. And so I would say, if it doesn't serve life, it's not true.
Or to put it more bluntly and clearly, the truth, the Darwinian pragmatic truth, to be specific, is anything you believe that happens to increase your odds of survival. This, you will note, is a concept that directly contradicts the concept of truth as the dictionary and pretty much everyone else in the history of the planet has ever understood it.
It's almost as if he could have written "Thus spoke Cthulhu."
It violates common sense. That's the whole point. That's what Einstein couldn't accept.
I can't accept it either. Do you know anything about spontaneous human combustion?
Shit! Look, I'm not responsible for chasing down people for personal calls. Listen, you idiot! I don't think this is as important as your lousy snot!
Walter, come on. Schrodinger's cat.
I know.
So what's the point? The point is, until the cat is observed by someone, he's not in any definite state, either alive or dead. He's in a wave superposition state, both dead and alive at the same time.
It's a superposition of both states until you open it and collapse the wave function.
I understand the physics. I understand the dead cat.
Says you.
Huh?
Okay, only when we open the box and observe the cat does he materialize into reality, either dead or alive.
I mean, even I don't understand the dead cat. And 1.74 H bar, okay? The uncertainty principle. It proves we can't ever really know what's going on.
None of this is truth. Say goodbye to classical reality, because our logic collapses on the subatomic level into ghosts and shadows.
Just go through each other magically.
Like ghosts.
Like ghosts.
And mankind? Destroyed.
Is everybody dead?
I'm born.
Been here a long time, have you?
Forever.
See, you're as good as new.
Well, don't give me any more brain teasers and my head won't blow up.
I thought it was a rush.
Robot monster. Oh, man. True stereo, 3-dimension process. Sounds serious.
Hello, I'm Orson Welles. What follows is a terrifying journey into the world of magic, mystery,
And sorcery.
And I suppose that you expect me to believe in sorcery as well.
Of course.
Why?
Because it's real.
Story of a girl looking to the future and a boy dedicated to the mysteries of the past. He invokes the unspeakable.
Yeah. Satha.
So the sorcerer is attempting to learn how to source power from the source, okay? The sorcerer is practicing most of the time, is in the craft most of the time, meaning always doing something that they don't actually know what they're doing yet, but learning.
Yog Sothoth is the gate whereby the spheres meet, and with the gate open, the old one shall be.
My body is a roadmap of pain.
Man rules now where they ruled once.
Oh, he's always been light sensitive.
Doc!
Cool.
Yes, the atomic bomb is terrible. But more terrible still are the effects of atomic mutation.
The legend of the Necronomicon has it that long ago the Earth was inhabited by a species from another dimension.
Here they affirm that according to the apocalypse, we're living at a time when things are perfect for the resurrection of monsters here on Earth. Since men are bent on wreaking destruction upon the world today, they'll heed their selfish desires and use the tremendous power that nature has given us.
Yes, nuclear energy.
To create a new race through which the gods could regain the control.
Fire don't explain what is there to gain.
put this mutt with the others where he belongs?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
One of the best movie monsters ever. But yeah, you get to understand what's going on with him without a lot of over explanation. There isn't like that scene where our heroes kind of stumble upon, I don't know, some piece of exposition or a character that knows what's going on that explains everything about the Predator to them.
Right.
But you get it.
And this is part of what makes it so damn horrifying. It deprives us of logical explanation.
Explanation. This fable contains and enforces many just and serious considerations, some whereof have been long since well observed, but some again remain perfectly untouched. Prometheus clearly and expressly signifies providence.
Whenever we consider any literature, we have to consider the fact that literature is part of a larger conversation.
Conversation is a game of circles. That's Ralph Waldo Emerson.
For of all the things in nature, the formation and endowment of man was singled out by the ancients, and esteemed the peculiar work of Providence.
It's called Providence. The conversation of one person and the art form they create, and then the response from another person and the art form they create.
The event on which this fiction is founded has been supposed by Dr. Darwin and some of the physiological writers of Germany as
not of impossible occurrence. I shall not be supposed as according the remotest degree of serious faith to such an imagination, yet, in assuming it as the basis of a work of fancy, I have not considered myself as merely weaving a series of supernatural terrors.
And I want to warn you about something that could happen. Something that does happen in my newest motion picture.
Today, courageous adventurers, dedicated scientists of both sexes, begin the exploration of recently discovered caverns, buried in the very womb of the earth.
Where fear eternal lives.
Suspense is the anticipation, what's going to happen, which builds the fear. I mean, you're afraid of the suspense because you're afraid that something's going to move all of a sudden, and you know it's going to move, and when it does, you're... Bleh!
Civilization in peril. A monster that grows exponentially and threatens protagonists because of scientific, not supernatural, causes.
I never thought of it as a horror film. I thought of it as a realistic film about inexplicable things.
He believes the history of horrendipity written here.
And according to this history, the very act of studying the text is inherently dangerous, and those who do attempt to master its arcane knowledge generally suffer a horrible death thereafter.
Carpenter and Hill came back to produce, and they came up with a concept for the film: Witchcraft meets the computer age.
I try to exert the full force of my mind on all the atoms of my body, so that they will mix and rearrange and fit exactly all the holes in that wall.
Now, Cow Tiki belongs to a genre of giant blob movies, which became popular after Britain released the Quatermass Experiment.
Hobbs End was a reference to the location in the film Quatermass in the Pit, known as 5 Million Years to Earth in the U.S.
The description of the
of the monster is probably better seen on paper than it would be visualized.
John and I are always sort of big fans of things that what you don't see is actually scarier than what you do see.
There's this cliche about it's always better never to show the face of the devil, never show the monster, always suggest it.
The idea is less about the afterlife and hell itself, and more about the pure fear of the unknown, especially in regards to human comprehension. Hey, I see you sneaking out.
Because it's freshest in my mind, this thing that I'm working on at the moment, this Lovecraft thing.
This character, H.P. Lovecraft. Now, he began writing these pulp fiction novels, and they were about these strange alien gods or these older gods and things like that. Like one, the character of Cthulhu, who kind of is a cross between a mushroom cloud and an octopus, and
he's just a general evil that exists in another place, but it's like Christianity in a sense. In a sense, our creator, he's our destroyer. He's kind of another version of the devil, I suppose, except slimier.
H.P. Lovecraft, known to the aficionados of the occult, demonology, witchcraft, as a master storyteller.
But in reality, his stories all contain a philosophy he came to develop known as cosmicism.
But what if we learned that this was not just a story or a metaphor, but actually real? Let's explore.
The suggestion that H.P. Lovecraft had got the idea for his stories from events that had actually happened.
I choose to believe that H.P. Lovecraft, if he wasn't inspired by the occult itself in a direct sense, at the very least had some sort of, influence coming from beyond. I do believe that that's possible.
And it is on that statement that all of science fiction is founded. Shelley is saying that the events in this book could be real. Not that they are real, or even that they are remotely likely, but they could exist in the universe we know.
The implications of this are mind-boggling. Every time there is one or more possible option available for the universe splits and creates copies where all possible outcomes come true. So, for example, there could be a world where Hitler won World War II.
Yes, Hitler. Dash it, I like the boy.
Where will he go next? This phantom from another time, this resurrected ghost of a previous nightmare.
Oh, I keep busy, I have hobbies. I clip coupons, too, and I watch my stories, which I love.
A vital reminder when both making and viewing films. Story is not life in actuality.
That you can begin at almost any point.
Since a story is always a whole, and the organic end is found in the beginning, a great story always ends by signaling the audience to go back to the beginning and experience it again.
The stories I give you in class are just illustrative. They're like fables, say, to help give you a picture.
The story is suggested by the characters are suggested by the story. It's quite a complex relationship.
How do you create this sense of a breathing, pulsing, ever-changing story, even when the last word has been read or the last image seen?
It can be anything. It can be a line of dialogue, a character's name, a half-conceived situation or concept, and it will grow organically from there.
It is an organic unit that develops over time, and it must keep on developing even after the audience stops watching it.
It really doesn't matter which point you begin at. You will have to do everything before you're finished. You will have to talk about the landscape, you'll have to talk about the plot and the story, you'll have to talk about the characters.
It's these tiny mundane tasks that make up the stories of our lives. But like McKee said, story is not life in actuality.
But a story can start from any point.
In general, you can read his stories in any order that you like, and you can view each story as a standalone story, and not necessarily intertwined with each other.
Frankenstein is actually a story within a book.
The story of the story is the story. Movies about making movies about making movies.
We're on a show within a show. My real name is Tracy Morgan.
You're in a toy commercial.
We see Earth, we see an alien spaceship fly down and hit the Earth. And in both movies, I wish they didn't have that.
One of the more horrifying notions to be implied by the cosmicism philosophy is that we are helpless against what exists in the unknown.
There was a ship in Starfleet called the Prometheus. And it had 4 engines just like the Prometheus in this movie. Do you think Damon Lindelof ripped that off?
We cannot fathom the rationale of whatever may lurk in the universe, in the same way an insect cannot fathom the rationale of a human.
No, this is a very different and very weird and very alien-looking thing.
It is, yeah. And I mean, you see the first traces of them in the fossil record 500 million years ago. The old ones had longer tails, and there seems like there's been...
Tails? There is a legend. There is a legend that tells of an eldritch race, more foul and loathsome than the putrid slime that clings to the walls of hell.
Which, according to Lovecraft, that's all bunk. Or they have a faith in science. And science works, but if we follow science out enough, we're really scientific about things, we're going to start encountering things that make us feel kind of queasy and scared.
Wretched mutations who live deep beneath the earth in dark tunnels.
This race, the old ones, can be brought back.
It was thought, Mr. Ward, that he had gained possession of a book called the Necronomicon.
The Necronomicon is a gate, if you will, but not a gate in the traditional way of something that you could walk through, enter a new area, enter a new space. It's a gate that actually opens you up.
It acts as a portal, a gateway, a key, by which demons and dark beings can cross dimensions.
It's said that even learning too much about it can lead one to insanity, and I can personally vouch for that. After having researched and written several Lovecraft videos thus far, I'm starting to feel a little insane myself.
In some ways, he was the perfect example of the fears of the white middle-class male in America at that time.
It tapped into the paranoia that seemed to be going around in the 1950s.
Magic, licensed or unlicensed, is un-American, infiltrating our lives and undermining the American family. Why work? Why worship if there's magic to make things easy?
About the American way of life getting invaded by evil alien entities that are hell-bent on conquering and destroying.
Oh, they're going to swamp us. Our American identity is going to be subsumed in this mongrel trash.
A paranoia that a lot of people put down to the political turmoil of the Cold War at that time.
For some of Hollywood's biggest stars and studio moguls, it's time to name names.
Dean Stockwell, Academy Award winner Ed Begley.
The Thing from Another World, which was kind of like a corny 1950s monster movie.
It's like a big Frankenstein monster.
Yes, yeah.
Look at me and know what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not your enemy. I'm a scientist. I'm a scientist who's trying.
I saw this thing at school. They had this movie about the H-bomb. You know, the hydrogen bomb. About it coming and blowing up the whole world.
Well, that's the apocalypse. That's in Revelations in your Bible.
The Bible does paint a rather impressive picture of the beast, stating that it is well protected with scales and has fearsome teeth. It said that death awaits anyone who approaches its mouth. But here's where it gets interesting.
We may be witnesses to a biblical prophecy come true, and there shall be destruction and darkness come up in creation, and the beast shall reign over the earth.
We were able to show occasionally one of the big 50s films like Them.
A lot of the science fiction up to that point, especially during the 50s, had been very bee-oriented, which is a giant monster, a giant ant, a giant this.
Them. Giant killer ants. There were tons of giant insects in the 50s, but this is the best of the bunch. It doesn't mean giant ants are any more cool than giant grasshoppers or spiders. In fact, I almost picked tarantula.
Even science was stunned. The new atomic miracle should have been mankind's greatest boon. Instead, when such power to cause phenomenal growth proved dangerously unstable, man was confronted with his most shocking blunder.
caused in one moment of history-making violence. Nature, mad, rampant, wrought its most awesome creation. For born in that swirling inferno of radioactive dust were things so horrible, so terrifying, so hideous.
At first, the fools thought it came from one among their many nations. They began destroying each other with hydrogen bombs.
That boy's been deep fried.
According to Lovecraft, man is vastly insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe. We are ants.
Are we merely ants dancing upon a grain of sand, in Voltaire's expression?
Where godlike beings do appear, they may appear like gods to humans, but they're entirely mortal.
He said their potentialities would be limitless, and their intelligence ungraspable by humans. These beings would be gods to the billions of less advanced races in the universe, just as man would appear a god to an ant.
We are to these cosmic beings as ants are to us.
That other greater beings can easily and unconscionably step on and annihilate or do with what they please.
And it's important to note that
these beings don't care about humanity because humanity is so small and insignificant to them as ants or microorganisms are to us. You might not hate an ant, but if you stand on one, you're not going to start crying, are you?
God, look around you, Francine. Look at the nature. Look, Francine, it's beautiful. Oh, Francine, I got ants in my pants.
Ants in pants! Ants in pants!
Ants in the pants? Ants in the pit? Ants in the pants? It's a game, dude. It's really fun. You son of a bitch!
Ants! Green ants! Dreaming here!
Your worries are behind me.
So, there's a little ant that lives in the plane. So this ant is two-dimensional.
Up and Adam, ant.
I think I got something. It's coming from over here. Occupato.
What the hell is going on?
All it ever knew was this two-dimensional plane that it lives in.
Observe the ant, a miniature marvel of social cooperation and prodigious strength.
Your day of reckoning is upon you. You have been judged and found wanting. Prepare for fiery doom.
Up and Adam, it's adamant! But if a man and an ant were exposed to radiation simultaneously,
But this is the most well-made of them all. It must have been an inspiration for James Cameron's Aliens. We have a young girl who's traumatized after her parents were killed. There's soldiers in dark caves going around with flamethrowers fighting the ants, and at the end, in a secret chamber, there's a queen ant laying eggs. So you can see all the similarities to Aliens.
Hey, maybe it's like an ant hive.
Bees, man. Bees have hives.
You know what I mean. There's like one female that runs the whole show.
The queen has a single purpose. She's an egg-laying machine, laying as many as 2 million eggs a month.
Yes, the queen. Yeah, the mama. She's badass, man. I mean big.
2 inches long, she's the largest ant in the world, and the reason for all this work.
All hail the queen!
She's huge.
Attention, humanity. I am Betty.
Don't say that, darling.
You're still Bill, still my Bill.
We are no longer content to scrounge around your wretched picnics, nibbling at your scraps and crumbs.
How long can I exist on crumbs? I'm hungry.
Bill, please, the doctor said not to get excited.
Yeah, I know what the doctor said.
Neither will we accept your gigantic feet trotting upon our works.
Man, she's an uppity ant.
These things ain't ants.
I know that.
We're gonna be blasting again soon. You gotta move. Boom, boom, quick, quick, understand?
Please, go away.
I can't believe it. To know our plans, our strengths, our weaknesses.
And there's no questions asked. I am an ant wrangler, and
this two-dimensional plane has a wall. The wall is one-dimensional. It's just a line in the plane.
It's not visible, but there's nowhere else in Australia where the Earth's magnetic field is so abnormally distorted.
And you've measured that?
Yes, of course. And because the green ant is the only living creature on Earth with a sensory organ attuned to magnetic fields.
And gone straight to his brain, just as the radiation, which is measured in units called Roentgens, was released.
And that's how he became a...
Mant.
It just hits a red line and it can't go through it.
It's only in your mind. Well, that's just it, Doc. My mind has always been my Achilles heel. Well, we have many ways of accessing the unconscious. Come quietly now, miss. Oh, you got a little something on your face. Oops.
ants are, as we all know, tireless, workers. So if you get a project that they can do, they'll do it.
So this little ant can't go through the wall and will never know what's on the other side of the wall.
We will struggle to understand them or choose not to.
It's what's inside a person that counts.
Yeah, Doc? Well, you know what's inside me? Formic acid. When you have formic acid instead of blood, you feel like a volcano or a bomb.
That better not be formic acid you're retching up. Very dangerous for the eyes. My eyes!
Look at it, Tick. How bad can it be? You're not scared of silly old Mr. Ant, are you?
Yes!
You must be willing to confront your fear with man.
No.
No. It's obviously not working. Let's try something else.
Hey, it's Taff!
We didn't know for what purpose, but we knew we would be told.
No unions.
Despite what their name might have you believe, panda ants or velvet ants are a family of wasps that resemble ants, and the females are wingless. They come in a variety of bright colors, though it's the black and white ones that give them their name.
Hold siphon, Herr Mayor. I have the solution to your ant problem.
If one day a miracle happens,
The new motion picture miracle that puts you in the action.
and all of a sudden the world of this ant becomes three-dimensional.
Never mind that. You have trespassed against us. Prepare for your doom.
Whoa. Oh boy.
If you add a dimension, things that were uncrossable before are suddenly crossable because you can use the extra dimension to cross them.
Everybody knows that ants are nuts for nougat.
That day, the ant would just go up to the line and say, wait, but this line has no height at all, so I can just jump over it and discover the other side. This is in three-dimensional space that we all know very well because we live in it.
It is science here, Major. On the outskirts of the city, we have constructed the largest candy bar in the world.
He's an ant wrangler. He's a doggone ant wrangler.
If you have two strands in four-dimensional space, they can basically go through each other like ghosts.
It started a month ago. What started? A change in the earth.
Come on, lady. Wake up and smell the nougat. Smell it!
It is up and adamant.
We knew then we were being changed.
The result would be terrible indeed. For the result would be...
The warrior wasp. These eusocial wasps look like they're made of obsidian, and along with the bullet ant and tarantula hawk, are the only insects in the world to rate a 4 on the Schmidt Pain Index. He described the pain as torture. You are chained to the flow of an active volcano.
I feel I should warn you. The story of Matt is based on scientific fact.
It is commonly known that ants keep slaves. Certain species, the so-called sanguinary ants in particular, will raid the nests of other ant tribes and kill the queen, and then kidnap many of the workers. The workers are brought back to the captor's hive, where they are coerced into performing menial tasks. And as we discussed last semester, the army ants will leave nothing but your bones. Perhaps you've encountered some of these insects in your communities, passing for what is most commonly recognized as human.
Let me handle this.
You're going to handle this?
Of course. They're ant women, right? Hey, honey. I'm a Scorpio. I like long walks on the beach, good conversation, and spelunking. How about you?
Applegate Sally, born Baltimore 1971, Scorpio. I enjoy swimming, chicken McNuggets, and gymnastics. Kiss on the second date.
Your wife is not really your wife. She is an agent of Interzone Incorporated. You must kill her.
Foolish mammals, we will destroy you all!
And I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords. I'd like to remind them that as a trusted TV personality, I can be helpful in rounding up others to toil in their underground sugar caves.
Your diet, Mr. Renfield, is disgusting.
Actually, they're perfectly nutritious. You see, each life that I ingest gives back life to me.
I had ants in my kitchen.
Ants?
Ants. And they're little small, what they call, I think, sugar ants, but they were coming in, I think, for water.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking ants!
Now the ants found the coat hanger, began climbing, and for 4 days and nights, nonstop, they emptied the entire head of turkey and cheese.
Wouldn't it be easier just to spray?
Here it comes, fuckers.
As their name suggests, are very aggressive and attack in large groups. Not only that, but when they feel threatened, they can beat their wings against their bodies to make a sound similar to that of marching soldiers.
Go marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. We started termites just for fun, hurrah, hurrah.
Roger.
DSO ready.
Bombardier ready, sir.
Indicators to maximum deflection.
Track indicators to maximum deflection.
Detonator set to 0 altitude.
Detonator set to 0 altitude.
Not a safe place to be. But today, there is no safe place to be.
Prior to releasing an electrical blast that traveled throughout the horizon all the way to the rescue vessel, forcing the crew to evacuate.
And the army ants believe nothing but the bone.
Earth is our only rival. Was great guidance.
What's he looking through? A glass dark plate.
Had not mastered the cosmic ray.
Out of the ashes of Buenos Aires comes first sorrow, then anger.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
Exterminator.
He exterminates you.
He's Adamant, that tiny ant, and his atomic power.
Meet again. Don't know where. Don't know where.
And should they ever meet, the world could end. Of course it could.
Okay, I guess for the rest of the movie, Indy battles bone cancer.
What brain sets in?
Hello, I'm Lawrence Woolsey. The feeling at this atomic test site is an anxious one. But then, you're about to see for yourselves what I mean.
Well, hell doesn't want you, and heaven is full.
Here's the first of the day, fellas.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
To old D.H. Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Indians.
Robots will take their place on the front lines.
Hi, I'm Chief Master Sergeant William Candy.
I sure as hell want to tell you everything, but I ain't got a whole lot to go on.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Your time for revenge is at hand.
Helga, baby, damn no!
What a lovely ballet ensues, so full of form and color. Now,
But I will tell you one little bitty thing.
I was honored to be selected by CRS in the ongoing effort to save American lives.
We used the complete DNA of a frog to fill in the holes and complete the code.
Water, fruit,
You see, Father, by creating a little destruction,
a cherry.
I'm in fact encouraging life.
Fifth Element really reminded me of Harry Canyon, 100% when I saw it.
The B-17 piece was a Dan O'Bannon story. Originally, that story was called Gremlins, and there were supposed to be gremlins on board that rip it apart, so...
Resurrected, directed by Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon. I said Steve O'Bannon on my Giga video, and I still haven't forgiven myself.
Maybe Picasso.
I see. Very good. Our old friend Picasso.
Zorg's pet, Picasso.
My first reaction to Picasso was...
A nasty little dwarf who went his whole life without a single original thought. I presume you're joking, right?
Picasso may have been a ridiculous creature, but he would be a complex, ridiculous creature.
Girls could not resist his stare. Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole.
Take that, Guernica!
And I think now that that's how it's being viewed, more than at the original time when it shocked people.
So it was a chance to create a monster that was design-based and based on the movement we can give it and based on some really crazy kind of offbeat ideas. I don't know that there's been a monster done like this.
Because there had never been anything really like it.
Generally seen as a large number of glowing spheres constantly merging and breaking apart. Sometimes tendrils are involved, as is common in these disturbing tales.
The forces of good and evil coexist throughout the universe and in the minds of men. The object of each force and its practitioners is to lessen or cancel as much as possible the effectiveness of the opposite force.
Good very often, not always, but very often defeats evil in a constant struggle.
Originally written, the monster was not delineated in the movie.
What it has to say about the mystery of faith and the constant struggle of good and evil, you know, and it was done realistically. That's what I think lives, not the special effects.
But it's not about the effects, it's about the characters. The teenagers are the heroes in the movie, which was uncommon at the time.
Lovecraft was an interesting juncture in his life right there. It was when he came up with a load of his ideas. So
traveling through Lovecraft's America, trying to put some sort of story together.
His influences are tangible in video games, TV, and in the medium we're looking at here, film.
I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, it's Alien. And then you watch the movie and you say, oh, it's Alien.
Especially the first act of the movie. They land, they find the ship,
yeah.
They get out, they're walking around in the spacesuits, there's all the pods. You know, it's visually, it's like identical to the first Alien movie, and that's where you're like, is that a remake?
It's sort of a remake, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, okay.
People always say, well, there are good remakes,
yeah.
And then you say, what are they? And they say, The Thing.
That's essentially, you could say, very much at the mantle of madness. It has influenced the story that The Thing was based on, which was a direct ripoff of At the Mantle of Madness.
Oh, that's really weird. And then they're doing the same thing later. We see their descent into madness.
That parallels The Thing, the movie The Thing, because it's like we see early on, in The Thing, Kurt Russell goes to the camp, and he sees everybody's dead, and like, oh, this is weird.
The madness being his unmasking, which ultimately seems to be the case from my interpretation. In either case, it's the only genuine element of the story that's properly Lovecraftian.
This could also be viewed as a Monster on the Loose film, but it begins as a scientific study of an extraterrestrial shipwreck, and there's a large emphasis on the fact that it's a being from another world, and the debate whether we can communicate with it or not.
My background is a love of features like The Thing and Tarantula and all those horror films of the 50s. And from watching them as a child and growing up with them and reading a lot of Edgar Allan Poe.
But then there's H.P. Lovecraft, and Lovecraft is kind of like the other Poe in a way.
Lovecraft is the most significant descendant of Poe, and you can see that heritage most clearly in those early stories.
Those kinds of those kinds of books, I've learned to love horror, and instinctually I know when something is going to be scary.
I guess for marketing purposes, Lovecraft just wasn't well enough known.
To this day, I'm still reading more of Lovecraft that I've never, read before, and I always notice more and more influences, like more references that I'll know where something came from.
It's an echo from Prometheus that has carried over, and it sort of fades into blow it out the airlock.
Like in the Batman universe, you've heard of Arkham. Arkham came from Lovecraft, so a lot of stuff like that. Then of course there's Stephen King. Stephen King's one of the most popular horror authors there ever was.
Stephen King was undoubtedly influenced by Lovecraft, and so I guess the film adaptations of his work have traces of those influences too. Then of course you've got all the things that have been influenced by the things that have been influenced by Lovecraft.
John Carpenter loves Robot Monster. It was a movie that he used to watch all the time as a kid, so he had it playing on the TV in the background.
All right.
I got the girl.
Beautiful maidens in the hands of hideous beasts. This is my kind of movie.
Sort of like a miniature version of King Kong.
It's a remake with a heavy dose of psychological, religious theory and
shock and a terror from this dream. And she went and wrote down elements of the dream which became the kernel of this story, Frankenstein.
This one wasn't my favorite just because of the way it's written. I love the ideas in it, but I just didn't like the vocabulary. It has a lot of that old-time kind of like words like thee, thy, thus, and thou, and I'm like, what the f***?
And the story itself embodies all those visions of terror that were emerging in the sense of the scientific community.
So you hear different takes on the whole thing, and that's what I think is great about the stories, is that there's so many ways to interpret them. So reading them is only the first step.
Bizarrely, some drafts also had a time travel-based plotline featuring Jack the Ripper, Hercules, and Genghis Khan, like a magic treehouse book with murderous chest-bursting aliens.
Do you remember Jack the Ripper, the psychopath who butchered 7 women?
Sure I remember Jack. How was the old rascal?
Priest who had a vision of the last murder a few days before it happened.
Where?
In a streetcar.
The murder took place in a streetcar?
Where the boundaries between dream, reality, and fantasy are blurred, the viewer becomes a creator of meaning, and that's not an easy job.
Break the code, solve the crime.
The code, solve the crime.
Influence is often very hard to quantify. It might mean something uses the same ideas or very similar tropes to another piece of work, or it might mean that two pieces of work are kind of similar.
The one. There is only one.
There is only one.
Please understand that from here we can return to the past. We can see the present. We can know the future.
I saw you in my dream. You're on Carcosa now. With me. He sees you.
Excuse me? He sees you.
Right, tell him I say hi.
Well, after all, it was inevitable, wasn't it? After all, it was inevitable, wasn't it? The divinity shapes our ends and all that. From here, where exactly are you?
The channeling of Scully's dead father through this death row prisoner, I felt was a really interesting way to turn the tables on the characters.
Did you get my message, Starbuck?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, I do.
Did everyone go crazy? Or did that thing?
I was struggling with that until I came on Rob Bottin into the special effects. And he suggested the kind of secret of the movie.
What is it? A secret that can no longer be kept.
Nothing happened. Nothing happens. That is the secret.
A world where humans have been able to glimpse further and deeper into the workings of the universe.
Do you think Adam was a Siamese twin? What happened to his brother?
There were two children born that night 25 years ago. Dr. Corey was told the other one died, but it didn't. It was caught between this world and another. Wilbur's twin took after the father.
And the father?
Not of this earth.
Ah, forget it, it's nothing.
The waker sleeps.
The sleeper must awaken.
Oh, no, not Tuesday.
The waker sleeps.
You have to tell me what happened here.
It's a long, boring story.
Oh, I'm having a Twin Peaks experience.
While the series is set in 1989 and captures that late 80s texture, it also seems apart from any time, which may be one reason it hasn't lost its power.
There's lots of prank playing and jokes, but in the end, they all get together to save the town. I love how obvious it is as a product of the decade in which it was made. It's a great little window into the 50s.
You know, I go along fine all day at school. And then at night, when I lay down, I think to myself,
Is this the night the bomb's gonna come?
Until the day arrives when their swollen numbers will finally emerge and ravish the earth like a noxious plague.
And repossess the earth.
The Prometheus label doesn't entirely fit him. But if not Victor, then who is this alternate title referring to? It refers to the scientific method. It's this approach to the world that offers us so much, that brings mankind so much. But at what cost?
You said it was only a legend.
Be sure, Miss Goldsmith. But a legend to excite the genius of a Bosch, a Bruegel, a Poe.
Dreadful rubbish, I know. Still, the people of Arkham believed it. They claimed that Joseph Kerwin and 2 other warlocks were trying to open the gates to these dark gods.
Open the gates? How?
Any author needing some money could write such a scene into their stories in order to up their chances of being featured on the cover and getting that bigger paycheck.
Kaltiki is one. The specimen is a unicellular being.
The church. And as you might expect, the church acts as a direct symbol for man attempting to create a relationship with the gods in a reality that consists of them.
And you can't forget the final chilling line, "Watch the skies."
Even at our greatest, we are but ants to these gods. But there's another option that completes this anti-myth.
Lovecraft developed the literary philosophy of cosmicism.
Not just the idea that humans will discover aliens that they can fight should they find the right tools, but they will discover aliens that are so superior to humans that they won't even notice us. It was the idea that
the human race has no destiny, it's almost entirely insignificant, and that one day it will probably die and be forgotten.
H.P. Lovecraft was one of the most bigoted individuals that it's possible to imagine. He hated everybody.
I mean, being on the internet with an accent like this is my own personal Lovecraftian nightmare, but fuck it.
It kind of brings whole new meaning to that phrase, "You ain't from around here, are you, boy?"
Oh, he's always been a special boy. I remember the day he was born. He looked up at me and he said, "Mama, I am not a person. My body's just a flesh vessel for an immortal being whose name, if you heard it, would make you lose your mind." Do you remember that, honey?
It doesn't have to look like one creature. It could look like every life form it's imitated throughout the universe because it's been on its travels for a long, long time.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Which one?
Yeah, which one of the 25 remakes?
In terms of perspective, if we zoom out too much, we're all merely a speck of dust amidst an infinite universe that we don't know very much about. With that focus, or lack thereof, nothing in life matters.
And it was this dark side that Mary Shelley tapped into in 1816 when she first conceived her work, Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus. The dark side of the Enlightenment and of the Industrial Revolution was that it proposed that
the thing can look like anything.
The face of the future. Ooh, it's me.
I know we get caught up on the whole cosmic transcendent horror thing, but really at the heart of it, Lovecraft was more about alienation and feeling alone and isolated in a world that never truly makes sense because, well...
Oh, God!
The issue of God, or the lack of a God, is very important in the film because Ash, being a robot who can convincingly imitate human emotion and behaviour, suggests of itself that humans don't have souls, that we're just biological accidents in the void and nothing more.
That there was no soul, and that man himself was just a machine within a machine.
That's kind of what the real world is like from a cynical perspective.
And consequently, one could manipulate man himself, control men ourselves, and we could do so by science.
You'll do this again. Time is a flat circle.
Mr. Nietzsche, shut the fuck up.
Discretion is the better part of valor. That'd be Billy Shakespeare.
If Shakespeare's claim in Hamlet is that there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, then Lovecraft's claim is that what is not dreamt in our modern philosophy might be the cause of our demise. Where Hamlet thought that the ghost of his father might actually be the devil, tricking him into damnation by convincing him to kill his uncle, a Lovecraft story might have the main character come across an entity that is neither devil nor angel, but is simply foreign and not sharing in the mores of humankind.
What is our place in the universe? What is it to be human? Are we the products of another race?
Why would they create humans and then uncreate them? What was the motivation of the alien guys? Maybe the black sludge was like a biogenetic liquid that created life.
From space beyond space comes force beyond measurement, energizing this monstrous mass of man-eating protoplasm that devours every living thing it touches.
They would be incomprehensible to us except as gods.
We have to get out of here.
Why, Eon? We were never here to begin with. We were always here. Always will be.
It's all right. It's okay. You're safe now.
Justin, Cooper.
They're fine. They're fine. They're with us. They're with us.
This is what the tandem cycle of random violence breeds. A vengeful black hit sludge with a grudge hath wrought the reaper you've sown in the goo of your guilt as the creme de your karma is roosting home to harm ya. It always ends up owning the poor.
When her mate appears in the sky, the power of Kaltiki will destroy the world.
And speaking of Judy, we find out that she is not acting alone here to say. She's apparently looking for a mate. And should they ever meet, the world could end.
You can believe what you like. Kaltiki's been reborn.
Which happens to be Beelzebub, aka the devil.
The immortal monster.
The Book of Job states that no sword, spear, dart, javelin, arrow, stone, club, or lance can defeat it. But it doesn't say anything about guns or bombs.
Conflicting eyewitness reports concerning little green men.
Yep, they're little green people. We call them boogers.
It's such a ridiculous creature. You know, he's lovely because he's a nonsense.
Wish to be a human? Good. You can die a human.
Whoa! Whoa!
In recent interviews, Ridley Scott said that the reason why the engineers wanted to kill the population of Earth was that 2,000 years ago, humans killed Jesus, who was an engineer.
that humans will have multiple futile attempts to see the gods in themselves, but will ultimately succumb to their animal nature. This was the point Lovecraft was trying to make. These gods don't exist for humanity. They exist with no concern for humanity.
I can't believe I just saw that shit. See that, dude? This is Jason Goes to Hell. That's the Necronomicon. And there it is, guy.
Of course, every mythology has such a book. But the Necronomicon supposedly contained formulas through which one could communicate with or even summon the elder gods.
Land of light, the army of darkness shall sweep down.
Don't get me started on Army of Darkness.
Why do you have all those?
Because my life is an empty shell.
What an asshole.
Oh my God.
This is mine. The God that sent me back. The God I serve in this world and yours. The God of flesh, hunger, and desire. My God. Leviathan, Lord of the Labyrinth.
The Leviathan is widely seen as a giant sea monster referenced in holy books and described in some detail in the Book of Job.
Leviathan. What? Leviathan.
Bowman, run a check.
Sir?
Leviathan.
In the original Alien series, and within the main antecedents of the horror genre, the idea that man is inexperienced and ill-equipped to handle the inhuman and evil elements that may be found in the universe is a common theme that has some very deep philosophical waters.
The Bible describes a Leviathan as a giant aquatic creature, although the type of creature is the subject of some debate. Since the Hebrew word for Leviathan at its root can mean coiled or twisted, many view it as a giant sea serpent.
Leviathan's name has been suggested by some scholars to suggest Leviathan is a primeval sea serpent that encircles the earth with its body.
Of course, as with many aspects of the Bible, there are certain inconsistencies that make it difficult to determine which descriptions of the Leviathan were meant to be taken literally or metaphorically. Some believe that it was meant to represent those in power, while others believe it to be a giant sea creature.
The nuclear chaos, the demon sultan, the deep dark, the blind idiot.
From looking at those scenes, you can see that Leviathan is a combination of Alien and The Thing. Crew members and scientists inexorably transformed into monsters, one at a time.
It appears the entire point of Leviathan's appearance in Job is rhetorical, to further point out the weakness, ignorance, and insignificance of humanity in relation to the universe.
Yet with certain symbols and diagrams shudderingly recognizable to the occult student. Clearly the lingering local rumors had not lied. This place had once been the seat of an evil older than mankind and wider than the known universe.
Now there is nothing left of what was once here, except the mosaic of our Lord and Savior above the front door. Some believe the old sanctuary still exists somewhere, trapped inside this evil edifice. Its primeval inhabitants were a murderous race of creatures whose vile existence contaminated time itself.
Then there came a sound from the inky, boundless farther distance that I thought I knew.
What's going on? Died twice. Is death only a frame in time?
Every now and then, a hole appears in the stream of time. Not a time warp, but a time rip. A rip in the temporal fabric.
Everybody wants more magic in their lives. Licensed practitioners of magic are popping up like rabbits in a hat trick.
I mean a rabbit out of a hat. I mean something emerging demonstrably from nothing. So to a certain degree, in that I would include our physical universe emerging from a single point in a quantum vacuum.
So while this is a story about gods, and this is a story about humans, this is not a story about humans participating in a myth. Bloodborne denies us the ability to see ourselves in God, and instead offers us a story where we see ourselves for the beasts that we really are.
Shit. I'm sorry.
It's your birthday.
And now, we can make a baby dinosaur.
What are you saying, partners?
Come back, old ones, princes of darkness.
Prince of Darkness uses a limited amount of special effects. For a low budget, they are very effective throughout the film. There are a few matte shots of the sun and moon aligning in the build-up to the demon awakening from the cylinder.
You got your gift after all, kid. Happy Death Day. Happy Death Day.
It came out of the screen!
Look out! There! They're in the 10th row!
It's in the theater! Run for your lives!
Don't let it get you!
Trent stood at the edge of the rip, stared into the
illimitable gulf of the unknown, but I was not far behind.
Trent's eyes refused to close. He did not shriek, but the hideous, unholy abominations shrieked for him, as in the same second he saw them.
You're inside the movie. It's a movie and it really get inside of it, and books that turn the readers crazy. And
in fact, this has become so common, it's so ingrained into pop culture, that a lot of these characters pop up without their authors even really thinking about the legacy of Victor Frankenstein that they come from.
This is all wrong, Scully. This is not how the story's supposed to end.
What do you mean?
Dr. Frankenstein pays for his evil ambitions, yes, but the monster is supposed to escape to go search for his bride.
There's not going to be any bride, Mulder. Not in this story.
Well, where's the writer?
Well, here I am.
You resist me.
No.
I will have you.
Have me.
Suppose I were human. Would you treat me like a man?
He's been using the view screen.
Hey.
What's the matter? No, not like this.
Now cut that out. I don't like you alien types touching our women folk.
Silence, girl.
That's it. That's it. You.
I've got your gift. It's mine. I'll never let go. I'll never let go. I'll never let go.
No, he's got hold of someone. Oh, help! Can anyone help us?
Nothing.
Aren't you tenacious? I find that very attractive in a man.
I am flattered, certainly.
Fine.
No. Wait. I will show you the secret of time.
I think we've done it.
I'll run, you
What do
cover.
you take? I worship you and you use
exposed me.
Why did you lie to me?
It's not a lie, if you believe it.
I want to clarify, I'm not an actor. I lie for a living.
Despite the fact that I am burdened with encyclopedias of demonic knowledge now that I didn't dream of 30 years ago. Didn't dream of these things, didn't imagine. So I am burdened now with bottomless grimoires of dark knowledge.
Of course, you know, the guy realizes pretty quickly, I better get the hell out of here. You know? And fortunately, lightning strikes.
Yes, these terrible events could happen in your town.
And despite the inhabitants of the city having uneasy and tortured minds on account of the strange new figure, they still crowd around him out of curiosity to watch disturbing magical spectacles, one in which ends with them being driven away by Nyarlathotep and enslaved in a hellish dimension.
Suddenly turned on, revealing a black liquid that Justin gently reached out and touched. Unfortunately for the young man, something grabbed him from the other side and exposed him to the horrors of hell.
The ocean of black liquid light, a living, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent substance permeating every aspect of all manifest and unmanifest levels of experience.
It was pulsating as if there was something in it. And John said, what do you think's in that? You know,
black, infinite vistas of cryptic, brooding, half-inscrutable monstrosities forever lurking behind nature, and as capable of being manifested again as in the case treated.
Life within life, the power that summons.
The fifth barb of hell. They come in legions on a north wind swell, with obscene clutch.
A clean sweep, a neighbor's knock, a letter, something there is in the attic that drives it and sets its course. This house is Ahab's ship.
Good sailing, Ahab.
Good night, Starbuck. I'm so glad to have had this opportunity to share it with you.
I do love thee. To you I deed all that I am.
Why, thank you.
You're one of us now.
This I bequeath to you. To you I bequeath my inheritance.
Tell me what you know about dreams. Tell me what you know about night terrors. Nothing.
Composite things are like dreams, fantasies, bubbles, thoughts. Like a dewdrop and a flash of lightning, a new dress and a burning tire.
No.
Grains of sand and sinking ships. The shadow of a statue and an entry in a diary. A brain tumor and
No.
They are thus to be regarded.
It's worth noting that in his interview, Dante explains that he wanted the episode to end with the sound of thunder as Helen and Anthony drive away, an indication that he will eventually revert to anger. But in the finished film, the shot fades to black before the thunder is heard, so we end up attributing the thunder to the next episode about the gremlin on the plane.